I will build my church. And we are looking today, for those of you who weren't here last week, please catch up on the Facebook group. If you're not in that yet and you want to be, let me know. Terry talked a lot about vision, a lot. And I can't possibly recap on everything he said. There's lots to catch up on, so have a look at that. So that's the background to where we are today. And today, we are looking at community. So, Terry reminded us of some verses that shape who we are as a church. Helen? I think that was because I was shouting at it in the wrong place. Right. We have certain key scriptures as our foundations. We've got the Great Commission, go and make disciples. We've got the Great Commandment to love God and love one another. We've got the importance of the truth of who Jesus is. We have the Holy Spirit presence with us. I mean, it's some list, isn't it? We have the Holy Spirit presence with us. We have the foundation of prayer. We looked at this amazing picture last week as well. Montez. Gemma drew, I have to say, she's not here today, so I'm going to tell. She showed it to her mum, and her mum said, "That's amazing, did Zach draw it?" Anyway, Gemma drew this. It's brilliant. And it's got about the promises with the rainbow, the ark, safe place, and on the foundation of prayer. So when we look at community today, and when we're looking at this picture that we feel like it's got some significance in it, it might be basically drawn, but it's got some truth upon truth upon truth in that. This ark is a safe place for us. We have a church here. Grace Church is our church. We are safe within it. But also, let's forget the walls remain, and the whole community around us has this place as its ark. Now, we know they're not going to all fit in. So we've got to do something about that. That's not our worry today. Our worry is, well, we haven't really got a worry. We've just got to give it to God. Our concern is for the community around us. What is God saying? We've got our own community, our own friends and family. We've got our own people that we relate to. Important community. And that's not to be forgotten. But we're also talking about the community, the actual physical, geographical place that we're in. The community of the people that we have landed in. Where the ark has landed, if you like. What is God saying to us right here, right now? Well, I can't say I know everything that God's saying. But what we've been doing is been prayerfully reflecting. Prayerfully reflecting. We know that the church is a safe place. The ark is a safe place for the church family and for the community that we're reaching into. And we believe that all of those important verses that we had right at the beginning, they're as important for us as for those who don't yet know them. We believe that this isn't an instead of. When we're talking about the community, we're not saying, right, we've done all our praying now, we've finished being in here, just being cosy, now we're going to go and do community outside. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying and. What God has for us as a community, what God has for the community, we have to do both. When we talk community out there, we do understand that there's a bigger bridge, if you like, a bigger bridge to build into a community that we don't know, and where people may be suspicious of us. We've got a less of a bridge within us, but we don't even know each other that well. So if we think community, we've got relationship building to do, both within the church and without the church. And we've got to do that in like stepping stones, little bits at a time. Whatever comes our way, let's embrace it, let's take it, prayerfully deciding which bits to take. Don't know whether you've noticed, but there's quite a lot we could do. So we've got to do what God's guiding us into. So, relationship building, proper relationships, from a place of genuine care and love. Where better to look than Jesus himself? Jesus related to so many different communities. When he was with the community he was in, he was present with his own God presence. And you know what? Every situation we're in, we're present with God's presence. He engaged. He used the various situations, life choices that the people he encountered were in, and he used them to direct them. I don't know whether you've ever studied Jesus and the way he does that. He just seamlessly, just like, you're doing this. Ooh, let's take you into the gospel. Let's take you into some truth. And so during our 3 prayer weeks that we've had so far, and that prayer month, as we were trying to seek God for what to do next, for what he was saying, in that most recent month, we had a whole week devoted to the community. And we had that phrase, being present with his presence. Just kept coming up time and time again. It's not complicated. Where we are, God is. His presence makes a difference. And Jesus was always present with his presence. And the sort of things that he used fishing, he used mountains, he used lakes, he used, when he met people in the marketplace, he used that. The temple, each parable he shared was directly relevant to the people he was talking to. He was present with God's presence and meeting people where they were at. So, this is our environment. This is our marketplace. Not got many mountains around here. We've got Holman Hill, nearly counts, right? It's a mountain to me right now, I'll tell you. But we've got all sorts of different things. There's not much fishing going on here, but what is our community? Where do we relate? If I'm honest, I never thought that in 2022, in the summer, there were going to be 5 fun days that I was going to be involved with. That just wasn't going to be in my imagination. But it's the community that we're living in. It's the place where we connect. It's the place where when we're there, God is there too. And it's what we've been invited in to help with. And when we are here, when we have these things like a fun day, we are present with his presence. One family that I spoke to, who came on the back of a leaflet drop, let's never forget how important dropping leaflets can be, they talked really openly and very, very deeply about spiritual matters with me. So all sorts of people had deep, deep conversations in one of those fun days at different times. So how do we see our part in this community? I don't know whether you've noticed as you walk around, as we even stand in our car park, we can see that there is a need. Are we agreed on that? That there is a need. We have to remember that we are present with his presence. So, as I was preparing this, I kept getting the verse, remember the poor. And I kept saying to God, I don't want to talk on that. And I kept, obviously, you can see where I'm going with this because I'm talking about it. Anyway, I kept saying I don't want to talk about it. And then I had to think to myself, well, why don't I want to talk about it? Why don't I want to talk about a verse that's saying, remember the poor? All sorts of reasons, and some of them were these. It's not only the poor we care about. We care about the rich and the poor. 100%. And who am I to condescendingly decide that it's the poor people around us? That's another thing that came to my mind. And do you know what? That's from my background. I came from here, well not here, the rival estate over there. I came from this area. And as I grew up, as I got a little bit older, I remember significantly the face people pulled when I said which street I grew up in. My mum never said Hotchkiss, she always said Sunderland, because that's posher. And when I had a better job, it was like I was the girl who made it good. And do you know what? That's not okay. That's not okay. God is the one who rescued me. And whatever poverty I was in, he saw my unformed body. Psalm 139 is my favourite. He chose me. He knew me. And it wasn't the poverty that I needed rescuing from. It was what was in here, or wasn't in here. So that's why I didn't want to talk about Remember the Poor. So then I was praying, and I thought, I'll just read my Bible reading for today. Galatians 2. When Paul was talking to the Gentiles, to the Galatians, And in that bit, it was a very complicated bit about what the Jews were going to do, who's going to be reaching the Jews, who's going to be reaching the Gentiles, kind of a division of labour. And then it said this in verse 10, smack bang in the middle of this letter. All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I have been eager to do all along. Whatever we do, we must remember the poor. Eager to do that. And then I was thinking about this, I was like, remembering the poor. Well, it's not just going, oh, I remember the poor. They exist. I've got a good memory, well done me. It's not that. When we're called to remember, if we just think about a couple of things in Scripture, we're told to remember to keep the Sabbath day holy. And we don't just go, oh, we have to remember to be worshipful one day a week. We actually do something about it. We make a decision to keep a day where we are focusing on God. When we're told to remember Jesus, we do things like we've just done, the communion. We are taking a step. We are acting upon our memory. It's not just having something in the back of our head to remember. I think we all know that, but it just hit me again. Remembering has got something proactive and active into. So, we must remember the poor. And sometimes to be poor is much more than the obvious material or financial needs. It's a poverty of spirit, a poverty of need, poverty of lack of hope, poverty of not having God with us. That's the poor. It's all of it. Jesus quoted from Isaiah 61, right at the beginning of his ministry. And he quoted, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners, recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." Jesus was sent for us, for people who need him. We needed Jesus. We need him, and so do our neighbours. All of the biographies of Jesus, every one, shows him reaching out to those at the bottom of the pile. Poor people, women, Samaritans, lepers, children, prostitutes, tax collectors. It's some list. It's some list. And, good to remember, he was passionate about people from every social background, the rich and the poor. What I've noticed is there's no room for discrimination with Jesus. His message of value, of absolute importance, wasn't just for one group of people. It was to not be spiritually poor, and to genuinely care for those who are physically poor. So it's the same for us today, right? Same for us today. We can't come into this community, zoomed in, this new thing called Grace Church, to discriminate, to condescend, or to judge. All those reasons why I said, I don't want to talk about the poor. I don't want to be those people who come in and judge. But Jesus came and he fed the hungry. Jesus cares for those in need. Jesus says, this really hit me. I was reading Matthew 25, famous verses. "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." In effect, Jesus equated neglecting poverty, neglecting the people who need things and need him, with neglecting God himself. In Acts chapter 6, we see the first early church ministry. They have the widows and they need feeding. And it's a bit of a, who are we going to get to do it? And do you know what? They planned it. It was like an administrative exercise. They got people involved. They got enough people on their team. I'm going to talk about a team in a minute. And they had a lot of people on their team and they sorted it out and they organised it. They didn't just rock up and say, "Oh, widows, we better do something about that one day." They organised it. They did some organising. There are so many examples to give from the New Testament of how people were loved in their situation. I'm going to read a couple of quotes from the book of James. If you've ever read James, you know this is not a happy clappy story. It hits us hard about how we are to be as Christians. And these couple of verses tell us, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say today. Firstly, from James chapter 1, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Okay. And another one from James chapter 2. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring, fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, "Here's a good seat for you," but say to the poor man, "Yeah, you stand there, or sit on the floor by my feet," you have not discriminated amongst yourselves. You have. Have you just not discriminated amongst yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? So we cannot be judges when we consider the poor. We've been praying. What is our part, our small part, in God's bigger picture right now, one step at a time? Our desire is to reflect the early church as best we can, to reflect Jesus, to remember the poor, and to build community. Strongly linked is this power and passion to pray. But Gemma's going to talk about that, otherwise I'll talk forever about it. So, if we recap, what do we believe God is saying? Build relationships. Do this stepping stones one bit at a time. Do not underestimate the fact that God has steered us to be here for such a time as this. His presence through us here, bringing His presence as we're present. I said too many presents. Present here with His presence. Spiritual need is a practical need. And also, we don't believe for 1 minute it's an accident we're here in the hub. We have met the most passionate trustees of the hub to want their community to change. And they've embraced us. I wouldn't say without some level of suspicion, because we're a church and we get a lot of cars in the car park on a Sunday morning, but they've allowed us to partner them in their passion for this area. And we can't deny that that's a blessing. We believe that's a blessing and an opening from God, a significant one. So that's the overview of where we're at. And I'm going to give some examples of some of the things as a community out there that we're reaching out into that are going to start soon. So, as we were talking to the trustees of the hub, we felt a real call to be present in the day in some way or another. And one of the areas that happens here already is on a Friday, there's a thing called Food Share. People heard of Food Share, it's across the country, giving away the fresh food that's surplus from supermarkets and things. What doesn't happen here is any kind of dried food, tins, that sort of thing. And sadly, Food Bank no longer reaches out to the Grange, so there's a massive change to the poorest people here. So we were talking about what we could do that's a simple thing, and we were praying about it as well. And in my mind, don't laugh too loud, I had this idea of a top 10 tin can alley. Top 10 tin can alley. Now, this is where it's starting. It's kind of getting formed, but it is early days. But the whole concept of it is that Grace Church will provide boxes of the top 10 items of food items that would be considered the most helpful, most appropriate tins for the poorest of families. The hub here knows who those people are. They come every time to the food share, and they're very aware of who people are, and there are obviously going to be more as well. But starting with what we've got, and starting with who we know, we're hoping to make about 20 boxes, probably monthly to begin with. And we're hoping to launch this at our Harvest Festival. our first ever Harvest Festival, which is on the 9th of October. So, we have a team leader who is quaking in her boots because she has no idea what it's going to look like. That's called Nikki Smith. And she will be building a team. Nikki gives away. Nikki will be building a team. I said to her, would you like to take this on? And she went, yeah. Well, actually, Terry did it on my behalf. Yeah. And then slowly she's hearing what it looks like. So soon she'll be running with it on her own, and we'll see what it looks like from her. That's making her a bit scared at the moment. So, for now, she's going to be heading it up. And we've got some leaflets, which we will put this on the WhatsApp group as well, but we'll put them at the back for those who don't have access to that, of what currently we consider in the top 10 items to be, ish. And then we'll box them up in boxes of 10, plus a bonus, and they will have that given to them. And some of the trustees are actually thinking about coming to the Harvest Festival because they really think this is a good idea. So that's good. We also have been asked to hire the hall in the daytime. So we were asking them if we can hire the hall in the daytime. It's been agreed what day it is, or all of those things, all up for grabs. It's not easy working sometimes with people who are busy themselves, and it's complicated to nail things down. But the idea is to have the access to people who are willing to be present with God's presence. People to be here, us, to listen and be around. We'll have some kind of drop-in for parents with toddlers, sometime a drop-in for children as they're coming back from school with their parents. There will be cake, there will be bacon sandwiches, different times of the day, those type of things. Do you know what? Hope Church used to do a ministry which was bacon sandwiches for chaps, and it's like an extension of that. We didn't know that existed when we felt that God was telling us to be present here and open up the doors in the daytime. And then we were asked, do you think that maybe you could extend this idea that we've been doing in Hope Church already, and do you think you can run with it? Making bacon sandwiches, I think we can manage that. And then just being present here in the day. The other thing to expand would be local events, like the fun days. I'm sure we're going to have lots more fun days. Other things we've been asked to do, carols. Anyone got their best singer voices on? Carols at Christmas, in the car park, outside the old people's homes. Some people in this room are absolutely petrified by this idea, aren't they? And yeah, others are really excited by the idea. We've been asked to do it. So carols in the locality. What we'll probably do at the same time is do like a soup and a roll in here with some craft stuff for the kids. And talking about craft stuff, why not have a craft day? We've had a couple, we've had one already, and we have another one making cards to give out to the community. How about sometime in November, having this place open as kids can come and make something for their families, make something crafty. And then next year, community week, community weekend. We've already been asked if we would consider doing that, but working with the hub again, seeing what families need some help, what families can we step out and help in a more kind of localised way. And then there's a more specific thing that we just wanted to alert us to, which is the child bereavement stuff. So there's a few of us in this room who have previously been a part of Eclipse, which is a child bereavement service, and we're going into schools, and actually we feel, a bit like, why aren't you doing it? We felt almost like God was saying, come on, why aren't you doing that now? Let's go into some of our local schools here. All of these things were prompted during those prayer weeks. All of those things. Bereavement, the children are their most vulnerable when they've lost someone really close to them. We all know what it feels to lose someone close to us. To be able to give that time to a child who's broken is the biggest privilege in the world. So we'll be calling on the team to do that. Any of these things we've talked about, anything at all, if there's something pressing on your heart, please have a word with someone. Please have a word with me or Terry or anyone. I'm sure the room will soon get to us. Chat it through, think about it, think what you might like to be involved with, and please, please, please continue to pray. We want to be present here with God's presence. God says, I will build my church.